Welcome everybody. I'm Chris Simcock, your keynote speaker. I'd like to introduce Isaiah Symes to the stage to present on his topic, which is Mounty lived experience. Isaiah is a Dhungatti man from Kempsey and also has ties with the Wiradjuri people. Isaiah has experienced a lot in his life and wants to advocate for Koori kids who have gone through as a kid. Isaiah is a project lead on the youth-led project Mounty Yarns, the lived experiences of young people in Mt Druitt. Isaiah will be joined on stage by and Daniel Daylight. Welcome, Isaiah.
Hiya, my name is Isaiah. Isaiah Symes, proud Dhungatti man with ties to Wiradjuri. Born and raised in Mt Druitt. I'm a youth just Reinvest youth engagement worker for 3 years now. I would like to acknowledge the Dhungatti people as the traditional custodians of the land on which rest of modern day Sydney of Mt Druitt, a suburb of Mt Druitt. We acknowledge the elders past, present and future. The Dhungatti Nation is a language group who are traditional custodians of much of modern day Sydney. We acknowledge any First Nation people on this side of the sea and pay our respects to their ongoing connection to the land, water and community.
Would also like to respect the Maori people and the ancestors of Aotearoa. And my name is Lucas Bolt. I was born in Blacktown, grew up in Mt Druitt. I'm a proud Wiradjuri man whose family is Bolts and James from Ballina and Kempsey Island and Lismore. I came to Mounty when I was 11 years old and I grew up here, and I'm becoming a JR youth ambassador because I wanted to do something different in my life and help the brothers. I was going down the wrong path, but now I'm trying to help myself and my black brothers and sisters out where I can.
And yeah, I'm Daniel Daylight, so I'm a Gomeroi man from northwestern New South Wales, but with ties to the Gubbi people of Queensland. I'm on the executive of Just Reinvest, New South Wales, and then I'm also a program manager at a youth service in Redfern, Waterloo called Weave. I have a long connection to Isaiah and Lucas and Brendan, who's sitting in the room, but you can't see. Having worked out here in the development of the Koori Court and in Parramatta Children's Court for years. So I've seen these fellas growing to be role models, for the young fellas and trying to make a difference. So hopefully the next generation don't have to go through the same type of things that they had to face. So yes, I'll pass back over to Isaiah to outline the session.
So in this session, I'll share a bit about my story, share a bit of quotes from other young people, talk about the work I've been leading with young people in Mt Druitt, and then we'll answer any questions. I was born in the Penn Hospital. I'm one of 11 kids, the youngest boy, to Jordan Symes and George Smith. I was removed at the age of 4 from docks, so I was placed in foster home and I was moved around a lot, and then I finally ended up in Mt Druitt with my auntie, so Mt Druitt's been home ever since then. I met Lucas when I was around 13. When I first moved to Mt Druitt, and some of my other boys that are my brothers now. When we first met, it just clicked. We were like a family, I don't know how to describe it, just in a family connection. Like we're all in a similar situation. We got taken, or some of us have been removed and placed in Mt Druitt, and we just made a family out of the boys around the same area, and today we still are. And I've also experienced the good side and the bad side of the law, mainly bad. There's heaps of stories out here in Mt Druitt, but you might have heard of one before. They're just some of the boys that grew up around here, we all had bad experiences growing up, and especially as young Indigenous blokes around here. Yeah, So I've experienced youth justice as well. It was very damaging and harsh. I've experienced the bad side of the custody and what it can do to a young person's mind. I've also been on the youth Koori court. It's like a different type of court than you normally sit in. It's the judge sits down at the table with you and you sit around in a circle, so that it makes you feel a lot more comfortable. And yeah, so I was one of the first young people to experience it from custody, but go back to custody. And yeah, and then a lot of the younger Indigenous boys gave it a go just because they've seen a couple of older boys give it a go. And yeah, it's way better than a normal court. Yeah, so when I was in custody, it took me quite a long time to get to the privilege unit, to the privileges in custody, where I could start working with people like Daniel, who are absolutely amazing mentors, just good blokes. And I first met him when I was 15, 16. I'm 24 now, so yeah, it's been quite a long time. And my story isn't the only story. Me and Talia and other young people have been leading a youth project called Mounty Yarns, where we collect stories, mental health, their experiences with police, over-policing, just any experience in general of what the life is like growing up in Mt Druitt. Yeah, Talia did this artwork for the project. Yeah, she's a very young woman, and I'll now hand it over to Dan to talk more about Mounty Yarns.
Yeah, so I'd just like to acknowledge Talia Williams, who can't be here today, but has been a massive player in Mounty Yarns, and she's only 16 now, but started doing all this work when she was 15. So she created this artwork that you can see that we made into a hoodie that I'm wearing, but I don't know if you can read the quote because it might be small on your screen, but she created an art piece for Mounty Yarns because she's passionate about it. And the painting represents Aboriginal young people of Mt Druitt walking beside our community as they navigate, harmful systems that have impacted on, our people, and especially the people of Mt Druitt for generations. So we acknowledge traditional practices that are passed down to us by our old people, whilst drawing on our own lived experiences to shape and deliver new frameworks led by the young people that I have beside me, so that they can have a better future and that their young ones can have a better future. So Mounty Yarns in general is been going on for over a year now, but it's basically a yarn. I think it's a black collar thing from over here, but I think it's just a conversation. So Mounty Yarns is a youth-led project that has gathered stories, expertise and knowledge by and from the Aboriginal young people with lived experience of the criminal justice system, and then the impact that it has had on them and their families and their community. So these stories are being developed into a written resource and a video that will reflect the experiences, the strengths and resilience of young people from Mt Druitt and in Mt Druitt, and so young people will also be supported to use these resources to advocate with government and non-government organisations and to build in a better framework going forward in how people will be able to partner with Aboriginal young people in Mt Druitt. As I said before, I've worked with Aboriginal young people from Mt Druitt for a long time, and like the brothers beside me, they've always impressed me, and they've always had all the skills, but there's never been the support out here. And I'm hopeful that this kind of resource will be the thing that can can lead to some of that support coming in out here. So Isaiah, Talia, some other young people, as well as these boys here in the room, have gathered these stories from visiting schools, youth detention or youth justice centres here in Sydney, talked to their friends, their families, the wider community. They've talked to all the young people that the system will tell you that you can't engage with, that won't go to school. They've engaged with them, and their voices are heard in this resource. And alongside that, they all bring their own unique lived experiences of growing up out here in Mt Druitt, and navigating through that system as well. From the care and protection system, where Isaiah talks about being removed, to the criminal justice system that the boys have gone through, to just being harassed by police every day. They all bring those lived experiences every day, and so I'll hand back to Isaiah and Lucas to kind of go more into depth about what has come up from those yarns.
So many things come up with Mounty Yarns, but we are going to share with you two areas of it. The first area is over-policing, and the second area is community and youth-led solutions. Every person in Mt Druitt has a story about over-policing. There's just too many to put up there, but on the slides are some quotes from young people that have been harassed, targeted, and have never had a good interaction with police. For example, like I was 13, I was just walking from the shops to with a group of friends. There's about 4 of us, and we stopped. Once they took my last name and read my last name, I got strip searched down to my undies on one of the busiest roads in Mt Druitt, Luxford Road. We were just going home to get money to go get a feed. And I'll hand to Lucas. He can tell you a bit about his story.
I've also been strip searched a couple of times down Mt Druitt or some more, just going out for food and stuff, and they just pulled us up, strip searched for no reason at a young age too.
We've woken up. I used to stay with Lucas, so we've woken up to him in our hubby house in the backyard, just doing random things like that, just to target us, just to try to intimidate us, and one night, me and Lucas and another group of boys were walking just to McDonald's to get a feed one night, and they pulled up, searched us, then took us in all different cars. They took me by myself and dropped us all into different paddocks and made us walk home caves from our area. So so they took some of the boys' clothes and made them walk home just in their shorts, no shorts, no shoes. So there's heaps of stories like that out here.
And I'll just add a bit of context. Like, you might not know Dawson's Mall, but Dawson Mall out here in Mt Druitt is like the main thoroughfare. So from you leave Mt Druitt train station and you walk to the Westfields, which is the big shopping centre, and they were strip searching Lucas.
Main square.
Yeah, right there in the main square, like in front of everyone. Like everyone's walking past. Go from the train station to the thing. And because Mt Druitt is in Sydney, but where Isaiah talks about being driven into the bush, you just cut a couple of k's, a couple of kilometres, in a certain direction, and you can be in the bush where there's no lights, there's no public transport, none of that, and that's where these boys got dropped off. But it's not just these fellas. We have some of the quotes which I don't think are on the screen, but where other young people who are only 14, 15 now are still getting threatened, being dropped out at Lendala and dropped out in the bush at the back near Windsor. So it's something that still continues to this day. So maybe you have a much more harsh story, Luke, but you might want to share it too.
When I was about 12 years old, me and my friends stole a car and we were driving home through King's Cross, and The police, they tried to stop us and that, and we didn't stop for a bit, but we ended up stopping. And they fired upon us and shot my mate, and he died, but he come back to life and he got shot in the car. And then they just come in and pepper sprayed, capsicum sprayed us and pulled us out of the car and bashed us. And I seen my mate lay next to me with a bullet in his neck, practically dying, and they were bashing him while he was on the floor bleeding with a bullet in his neck. And yeah, it was very intimidating and frightening for me. I'm still scarred for life from it. And yeah.
It's just like stuff you see on American media shows.
Like America, you wouldn't think it's like happens over here.
But it actually does happen here in Sydney. But yeah. And the community-led solutions is so when we were younger, we always wanted to play football in the park. We did for a bit, but unfortunately, like half an hour into it, police would always come and break it up. And we're only just playing football, like in a park. We're not harassing anyone, we're not doing anyone harm. So that's where this OzTag program come up, where as we talk to young people and we knew this could work and couldn't wait for a report or video. So we started advocating and creating change. And by that, this OzTag program come about. We have sat down with Executive Director of Youth Justice, presented at conferences. A couple of us have written articles, met with academics and community members, the Children's Commissioner and the Advocate of the Advocate for Children and Young People. We've advocated for our peers at courts and in meetings with police. We've also been creating youth-led solutions to show that we can do it and it works. We have the OzTag program, our music program, and we have supported young people through COVID-19.
And I might just talk about the OzTag because as I like, I'm not from Mt Druitt, so I float in here to try and help out when I can. And, for years when Isaiah got released, that was one of his main goals, was like, I want to start OzTag I want to do OzTag with the boys. And one of the photos on the slide there on the bottom left is, we used to just have some OzTag stuff, and Isaiah and a couple of other boys would just message out to people and just be like, oh, we're just having a game of OzTag, at this park, and afterwards we'll get a feed and come down, and that's how it started. And then, Isaiah mentioned that they used to try and have games of football, but like the police would come down and give them a move along order, and so if they didn't basically stop playing football, they were going to get arrested, for not complying. And so, Isaiah has led the OzTag program, but there's more to it than just playing a game, isn't there, Isaiah? Yeah,
it's like a little family. Like some of the boys out here, it's like we moved some of the boys moved from the country down into Mt Druitt, and it's like when we get together, like we share all of our experiences. You don't have to, but it's like a family, so we're just comfortable and it just comes out normally. I also knew there were like real need for after hours activities and linking young people with supports on their terms, not the workers' terms, on the kids' terms. So we started with one team, and that team got fueled straight away, and there was just a big waiting list for other players. So we made two teams. So the two teams is made up of, one's an older boys team where a couple of younger boys who need a bit more direction come into it, and there's a young boy team which is just where a couple of mentors go and play with them just to keep them calm and cool-headed through the game. And so we've got two teams, but there's still a big waiting list for other young people. The young men that turn up at the games are young men that services say they cannot work with and will not work with, and cannot engage with them, but they show up for OzTag and they show up for activities we put on. So you can work with them and they will engage, it's just how. And we've created a family and community through this OzTag program. Like Dan and Lucas said, it's just one big happy family. Like you get down there and as you can see from the photos, there's
have fun.
Yeah, it's just a happy
enjoy
time.
ourselves.
Yeah. They also get access to youth workers through this program, and a lot of help. Like they have access to a lot of things through this program.
Helps your mental.
Sorry. And Talia got us funding for each season from our corporate body, and but for the next year we will need more. Okay, like everyone loves it, so we just got to get more funding for next year, I suppose. We want, like, to wrap it all up, is we want everyone to be able to learn from the experiences, the strengths, the challenges, and the resilience of our young people. We speak for those who are usually given a voice or listened to, or in fact just disbelieved. Young people know what they want, what they need and want. They want people to listen to them, to be free from over-policing and feeling like they have a target on their back. Things to do outside 9 to 5. Just in general, make Mount Druitt a safer place for young people just to hang around.
Keep us on a narrow, straight path, a good path. To form strong connections with their culture and community, to educate systems better to support the young people, and to be free from negative stereotypes, and a better future for themselves, their family, and also their community. We are speaking today, creating the Mounty Yarns resources and advocating for our community and young people, in hope that you all hear our solutions and back us to make the change that we as the Aboriginal young people need and are asking for. Thank you for listening, and we are happy to take any questions now. Ethan, would you like to?
Yep, so I think we're...
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Isaiah, Daniel and Lucas. What I can say from your presentation so far, which is evident to me, is that your honesty and rawness has been really appreciated by everyone who's watched your presentation. So it's absolutely remarkable. We've had a couple of questions come through, and I'll try and paraphrase some of them as much as I can. Some of them are pretty much aligned. There's a place for Aboriginal caseworkers to travel when police are engaging with young people in both the child protection system and in the justice system.
I might jump in and answer that one, and then if these fellas want to say something else, you know, like we work in the well, I work to to help develop the youth Koori Court, and a couple of fellas here were part of it, or had family that were part of it too, and you know, that is in that the police prosecutors are part of it too. I think the to some of the stories these lads were saying, it's just like we're more than willing to work with the police if they stop harassing and give us a chance. Like as soon as Isaiah mentioned, as soon as they heard his last name, and it's the same with Lucas, and it's the same with Brendan who's sitting in the room here. As soon as they hear your name and who you're related to, you're instantly targeted from the time that you're 10. Or even younger here, but it leads to. So I think that in theory there's no problem with working with the police. It's just like it's very much from their perspective, us versus them thing. Like it sounds like it's made up, but like these boys were building a cubby house at Lucas's house from things they found on the street, and even that thing, which is something that young people do all the time, try and build their cubby house. they woke up to having police just sitting inside of it one day. You know what I mean? Like, well, a couple of times, but you know, like they're not even free to be young people. They're not even free to be kids because they're young and they're black. They're immediately suspects. So I think that to answer, it's like, I think if anyone's beaten up an Aboriginal woman and the police rock up to her, no one here is going to have a problem with that. The problem is it's immediately from the age of you start getting some hair on your chin, you know, you're a police suspect out here. So as long as the police could give us some time and some chance to form into being young people and being kids without harassing, I think that there is a way to work alongside. But yeah, it needs to not just be a one-way street. Like the police actually need to actively go out of their way. And to the point here that this is Isaiah's positions with Just Reinvest, and I'm on the executive of Just Reinvest, and Inspector Greg Moore and stuff, and the stuff that they were doing in Burke was a good model of what, you know, police working with community, working alongside community. But that's so far from what happens in Mt Druitt that it's hard for these fellas to even contemplate that, yeah. Like, I don't think he's good. You wouldn't trust the service that was working with police out here, right?
100% no.
And that, like, you know, that's going to take a lot of work, because as soon as the police, like we were just talking before we came in here, the PCYC is down the road here, and none of the black kids out here go there, you know, like, and for very good reason, you know.
Welcome,
yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
When we have been there, it's welcome us.
Yeah, and that, like, yeah, and that's the thing is, from the other stuff, I can see that in other communities where the police have made the effort to engage community, that starts to change. It's not, we're not the problem in that relationship, they are. So if they come and meet us on our own terms, I think it works better, I guess.
Yeah.
Your experience is, the sad truth is that they're probably current around the globe today, certainly in Australia and New Zealand. What, in your opinion, and you might not be able to answer this question straight away, but how do you save the kids from that fear of walking to McDonald's and going to the shops without, that have a fear of police strip searching them or harassing them just for doing what is a normal activity for young kids?
Well, as kids, when we would, as soon as we'd see how we dealt with it is we become athletes.
Yeah.
We just run. That's the sad truth. As soon as we see a cop car, no matter if we're being good, if we have food on our hands, if we just walk with our mates, we just become into track stars. So we just leg it. That's the basic option. But these days, like, I try to tell my younger cousins and family members, like, if you've got nothing to worry about, just go do it. But make sure you know your rights. You always have your phone on you so you can ring me.
Record.
Yeah, like, I'll record them. Make sure you have your phone on record when they do pull up, because I guarantee they're gonna say something cheeky just to try to aggravate you or try to get a reaction out of you. So yeah, like, for kids, for me and Lucas and Brendan growing up, like I said, we just ran. That was the best option. There was no other option, just to try to get away from them as quick as possible. Sometimes that didn't work out. 9 times out of 10 it did. But now we just, I don't have to worry about that. I can just walk to the shop. But if they do pull up, I know what to say, and I know how to carry myself now. Where when we were younger, we didn't. But I have a lot of people to thank for that, like Daniel, Nicole, a couple other people who taught me my rights and my responsibilities as a young person. So I knew I wasn't doing nothing wrong. I'll just walk. If I wanted to go get fit, I'll go do it now, because I know I'm not doing anything wrong. I still got a target, but it's not as harsh as it was growing up. Yeah.
I was going to ask that you, Isaiah and Lucas, what's your relationship with the police now, especially in Mt Druitt, when you're dedicating so much and effort into helping young kids and changing the trajectory of their path?
Well, it's still the same as we were younger, I suppose. There's a lot of new coppers that don't really know us, but there's a lot of old coppers, old police officers that do know our families, and do still target us.
Straight away.
Yeah, so I can't. When I walk around with my partner and my 2 sons, there's always one copper that get cheeky and drive past me all the time just to get a reaction out of me.
Yeah.
But it's not. That's not the case for all of them. But it's
good and polite.
Yeah, but it's just a matter of time before they get into that I don't know, like routine. I don't know what the word is, but
once they learn about our past, they think that we haven't changed and trying to do right.
Yeah, so the old coppers,
they'll just be smart. And
we'll tell them something, I'll get them in the same mindset as them coppers would be, and from then onwards, it's just back to square one.
Just like a cycle.
Yeah, it just starts all over again and repeats, and yeah, just non-stop.
Is there a view that you would like to expand this program further, Isaiah, and see it spread further across New South Wales and you know, similar models pick up across other jurisdictions?
Yeah, 100%. Hopefully at least because you can take some of this and everyone can work off it. I know how to put it in words, I suppose. So hopefully people can learn from this and other people take it on board and
yeah, and I suppose like to the point of this is very much like this is Mt Druitt, you know. So we've learned from this Mounty Yarns idea was obviously heavily influenced by the Youth Koori Council down in Victoria. Produced a similar kind of document of the experiences of young people in you know, and where that intersects with the system. And so I suppose the Mt Druitt is also unique because when a lot of people who make decisions think of Aboriginal people in Sydney, they think of Redfern. They don't necessarily think of Mt Druitt, even though it's the biggest population of Aboriginal, you know, young people at anywhere in New South Wales. So I think this all ties into, and Isaiah and Lucas are continuing into the tradition of our people of self-determination and community control. So what's good in Redfern or what's good for you, Chris, up there in the Territory, isn't always going to work in Mt Druitt. It's about listening to the community in which you're going to work, you know. So this is about young people from Mt Druitt have their own unique experiences that you might hear in 1/4's music. And you might think, oh, that doesn't sound real. And it's like, I bet you, like this fellow went to school with them fellows, you know. So they all have, it's a very uniquely Mt Druitt perspective, you know what I mean?
We've got like our own culture.
Mt Druitt's its own culture, and so is Burke, and so is you know, Catherine, and so is Alice Springs, and so is Tamworth, and so is Kempsey, you know, and Cabbage Tree, you know. So so is South Auckland and different things in New Zealand, and it's also about, we can't just have a cookie cutter approach of being like, well, this worked for black fellas in Burke, let's do that in Mt Druitt because it's very different, you know. So these fellas saying this is what we want for our community, and Talia saying this is what we want for our community, and so it's very hard to just replicate. But I think the things to replicate is the process. It's like actually stopping and listening to young people, and not just making decisions for them. Because these fellas are brilliant, you know. Brendan's brilliant, Talia's brilliant, Dylan's brilliant. But no one ever stopped to ever ask them what they needed. You know what I mean? Everyone's always told them what they needed. So if you stop and listen, you will find that you'll have a lot more success in any of the programs you're doing, no matter where it is, you know, that when you listen to people with lived experience. And hopefully then you don't have to listen to people with lived experiences of bad things. You won't have stories where, you know, their brothers getting shot and stuff. You'll have stories where the police actually helped them, you know, so we want to change what those lived experiences are.
Do you have any challenges around the confidentiality with young people sharing their stories with you, or some of their criminal charges, especially if they haven't had conviction?
We do, but we don't include their names. So yeah, that's a very touchy subject. But we work with the Aboriginal Legal Service as well, so they kind of give us a heads up on what we can and can't share from the young people. And we make sure that everyone's protected first and foremost, that their interest is in our, like their interest in our bail out notice. Yeah. But it's risky because all young people are targeted out here by young police that we work with. They all have been. So if you don't know a person like us, you will not be able to pick out their stories or their experiences that they share with us. And yeah.
And so and I can speak from the perspective of like the way I viewed and why I wanted to be involved in Mounty Yarns was like, I've known this lad since he was 16, and you know, I've worked intensely with him for years now, but like, it's also, his story is very powerful, but I don't want him to have to tell his story again and again, because it's also filled with trauma. Yeah, and it's like the same thing with Lucas and all the boys and the girls too, you know, because there's a lot of girls, and Talia's not here today, but she brings her own experiences too. And we don't want young people to have to continually live their trauma and tell their trauma to people to be able to get funding. So we're trying to create a resource that tells the whole story of Aboriginal young people in Mt Druitt. That is de-identified, but you know, there's probably, I don't know the numbers, but there's 50, 60, 100 people who are involved in this process that we've interviewed and talked to. They all tell the same stories. So do you know what I mean? Like, we're trying to create a resource that tells their stories so that young people don't continually have to tell their trauma to people to get a better result in court, to get a better youth service, to get a better, to talk at conferences like this. Like, so we don't want to continually have to march out and tell all that trauma. It's like, yeah, this is all of us. Every black fella from Mounty, this is our experience, so listen to us. You know, that way it also helps with that, you know, that identification, confidentiality, because we know, like, these are the experience of young black fellas in Mt Druitt, you know. So it shields us in the thing that Isaiah talked about, where your story, you start telling your story and then you're picked on and you're bashed by police, you know. So we're trying to, and not just the police, you know, you can tell your story and have your kids removed, like whatever it is. We're trying to tell those stories where it's not focused on an individual. Yeah.
Got another question that's come through here. Did you have any experiences, positive experiences with your JJO's caseworkers? What have improved your experiences of community supervision and casework with youth justice?
So I've had plenty of JJOs and plenty of workers, but probably one was my JJO from Penrith. But she was just, yeah, she went beyond and beyond. Like, yeah, she wasn't just like the rest. She actually cared and listened to my story. Yeah, she gave me a chance. It's not just that she gave me a chance, that she actually turned up, that she was actually wanted to work with me. She wanted to help me in one of the, just do good work, like just to help me in general with that. But it took a while for me to build up, to trust her, to build that relationship. If you want to call it a relationship. But Yeah, but as soon as I got out of custody and that a couple of months after, it just pretty much dies. Yeah, like when your parole finishes or your supervision orders finishes, that relationship. Like she did come and visit me after a couple of times. Then it dies. Yeah, she goes back to work and she gets another caseload of kids. But yeah, like I said, I had numbers of community workers, JJOs, parole officers. I've never had a good experience except for one, except for people I work with like Dan and Nicole and a couple of others. Other than that, I could not tell you a good story about any one of them.
I've got a couple.
And we've got a question for you, Isaiah and Lucas and Daniel. If you could change one thing tomorrow, what would it be for young kids in Mt Druitt?
Chance a bit,
If I could, yeah, you go first.
try to just give people a chance on that, like just change, like get some police to change their ways, like be a bit more polite around that, and for us to try to show more people around here like a better way instead of just doing wrong or always feeling hurt and that.
So for me, it would be like, if I could change anything tomorrow, I'll have a community-led program like where we can actually go to it without worrying that the police are going to turn up. That we can just go be ourselves and do what we like, not do what we want, but just have fun and do what we normally do. Go down the park, play thing. So what I really want to change is that we just have a better community. Our community actually gets along, and it's not that side versus this side. It's I just want more support.
Community centre where we can all go together.
Yeah, like more support in Mount Druitt.
Something like that.
The police to have more cultural awareness of the many different nationalities in Mount Druitt, but mainly the Aboriginal and the Polynesians. Just have better understanding of our cultures and of our experiences of what it's like growing up in Mount Druitt.
Yeah, and I suppose for me is I just want people to care. You know, like I don't actually think I don't have any degrees or anything like that. It's for me, it's just like actually care about young people. So I think that I wish that our systems cared a bit more. So I wish our police cared more. I wish facts cared more. Like I wish juvenile justice cared more. You know, there is some great workers like my brother Eric Brown that does a lot of good stuff inside the juvenile detention centres here in Baxter and Colburn and different places. But those are few and far between. You know, we have Jess Brown who works at the Children's Court here at Parramatta, who's an absolute weapon, but she's one person, you know, whereas there's organisations that are getting tens of millions of dollars out here that aren't doing anything. And to, you know, Lucas's point, like these fellows in the last year have put to shame every other youth service that's around here. There's something like 240 different youth services or people that get funded to pay to do youth work in the Blacktown LGA. I talked in Parliament at this thing and someone brought that up, but I didn't know that number because when you're out here, you only see, if you're these fellas, only Jess is working with you. Or if it's not Jess, maybe like there's a black fella in an organisation that you know, but that's because there's no community control of that. That's because there is no feedback. Like these fellas do this work and are accountable and can get all these young fellas there because they are these young fellas. They're these fellas' older brothers, older cousins, everything like that. And that's the way our community services, our community controlled services have always worked. here in Australia anyway with Aboriginal people. And so it's what we've got to do out here. We need to have an Aboriginal youth service that can, you know, be a safe place for our mob, and then can continue to work with, like, you know, the Polynesian community and Sudanese community and other communities out here, so they can learn our culture too, and, you know, so we can form, you know, an actual a strong community, you know, that's not just one known for, you know, it's violent kind of rap songs or struggle street or things like this. There's deadly fellas out here like these two next to me, and Brendan that you can't see, and many others like Talia and Dylan and all these fellas that are doing great things out here, and Jess. But no, you know, there's no funding. So, you know, all the funding goes to juvenile justice or youth justice or whatever they're called at any given time, or to facts or to the police. All the money out here goes to controlling Aboriginal young people. None of it goes into actually caring for them. So I think if there's one thing I could ask for is that you give Aboriginal community organisations out here money to be able to work with Aboriginal young people the way that we all know is the best way to work. So
excellent. We've just had a couple more questions come through, if you don't mind me asking. We've got a little bit of time left. One of them is, does the City Council fund community projects, community initiatives with Mt Druitt to support communities to run programs that include families and young people?
I think, so the Blacktown LGA is the biggest. I think it has the most amount of young people in the whole of Australia. I'm pretty sure that that's actually right. Sorry, Nicole's disbelieved me here, but I'm sure that that's right. And so what happens is there is funded programs like the Leisure Centre, you know, we've done a couple of things. So the local council does do some stuff, but it's for the amount of young kids that there is, it's not really the most, you know what I mean? Like, and none of it's Aboriginal specific. So like, you know, at certain times when there's beef in different areas, or, you know, conflicts within different areas, you know, only one kind of cultural group might go to that youth space. So there's none out here that are Aboriginal specific, and especially none that are funded by Blacktown LGA that's Aboriginal specific. So I think that, yeah, do you think that too? Do you know much about the council out here? Yeah. So like, I think so they have supported things I've done out here before, like if you can remember, maybe you, that when we did the OzTag back in, not OzTag, that thing with Parramatta Eels, back in the days, the footy with them, like, so we did a couple of things where the council would give us a space, but they never really ever gave us money. So like they'll let us use the pools. But there's no cultural spaces out here. Like everything's concrete, you know, like you can't light a fire, you can't put your feet in the ground. You know, like you can't do blackfella things.
You can't have like a circle to sit around.
Yeah, there's no circles. Like if you wanted to get to the closest place to do a circle kind of yarn, you'd have to go to Cobham, like the youth detention centre, you know, like just up the road. Because I don't know of any around here. Yeah. And like that's the problem. Like a lot of these fellas have to go into lockup to learn their culture. Like you learn how to pay now, when you're locked up, you know. And that's because none of that gets. There's fellas out here that'll show you, but no one supports them to give them a space or to fund it.
Any advice on what you would like to see change in custody, Isaiah and Lucas?
Yeah, I just want them to be better workers, because, like, as I said, I've been in custody for a long period of time. It's shit. I'll tell you the truth, it was shit. For any advice I'll give to any young for, don't go in there. there's no point of being told when you can eat, when you can go to toilet, when your bedtime is, what TV you can watch, what you know, just
What you can say.
you can't even open your door. You know, you got to wait for them to open your door. So me, I'll tell them there's no point. It's
If you do, you just need, like, there's a lot of things.
just if you go in there, just
Need more help.
be positive.
Healthier stuff, like doing more hygienic shit.
Just give everything a go. Like Dan said, I didn't know any of my culture until I went to lockup. I found out that I had cousins everywhere. I learned how to paint. So, and that was only because I went in with an open mind. I gave things a go. At first, I didn't. I just wanted to do my time and get out and do the exact same thing I was doing before I got arrested. But just have an open mind when you go and give things a go. I've done my year 11, or I've done half my year 12 in there, but I got too hard. So,
and I might just jump in because it's hard for Isaiah to talk about some of this stuff because of legal things. I'll just put it that way. So, but you know, Isaiah went through a very punitive system of, like, you know, being an A1B class O, you know, where he was under the strictest conditions that you could have in New South Wales, you know, where like very, very strict, and there's other stuff to say about that, but you know, maybe one day Isaiah will be free to say that. But he's also went through, and you might want to talk about like the Waratah program at Reeve, because that, like, to me, the Waratah program or the Waratah unit at Reeve or the program at Penang up at Backs, I don't know if it's still there, that was how every young person who goes into custody at the very least should be treated, and it's not something you should have to be a good boy for 3 years to get access to. So Isaiah might be able to talk about like how that's positive.
So the Waratah Pre-Release unit is located in Campbelltown. It's a pretty good unit. So it's a unit where people come for the last 6 months of their sentence. It's like a reintegration to the community sort of program for people that done long times or just people that just need help getting back into community. It was pretty good. I liked it. Every worker on there was there to help you. They weren't just there to lock you in your room. I got a job out of it. So my first ever job was roof tiling. I got from the Waratah Pre-Release unit. My first paycheck, legit paycheck, was from that working with Waratah. I've done so many things there. In Campbelltown TAFE, we helped them build the Aboriginal Learning Circle and garden there. They offer you so many opportunities, not just you're just there to do your time, but like they're actually there to help you. They help you get your license. They whatever you want to help with, they pretty much within reason they will help you with. And like I said, I wouldn't have done that without being open-minded and giving it a go, because at first I didn't want to go to it, but then they started telling me more and more about it. And once I got down there, I realised it was way better down there. And there was a lot more opportunities for me in that program. Like Dan said, I had to behave for 3 years and a bit so I can get to these privileged units or privileged unit. Where it should just be on hand as you first go, not on hand, but like when he's going, like you should have an opportunity until you prove it.
Yeah, that's like managed.
Otherwise, yeah.
It's like the thing is like you have to get institutionalized first, and then they'll de-institutionalize you.
Yeah.
So like really, you should just, especially for young fellas, and you know, like Luke's just mentioned, adult jails, like.
None of that until you're like halfway through, like when you're about to get released, you get like a couple programs and doing that don't have it at the start. Unless like if you're on remand, which is like you go to different jails and that, and you do nothing, and it's like maximum. Like, you can't really do anything. They don't even give you programs or help you out to try and get reintegrate back into the world and stuff like that. They just let you release you, and you get some people end up doing the same thing they do. Yeah, but if you're like a C class O minimum, you get some different programs to help you out in that. But yeah, it's not that good.
And that's the thing is, I don't think you should go through that whole process like before you, like if our system is going to be there, especially for young fathers, if our system's there and part of, you know, our thing here is about rehabilitation and for juveniles, you know, in New South Wales, that's a big part of it. It's like you shouldn't have to be doing a 2-year sentence to get any aspect of rehabilitation from the system, you know, where you have to prove to get to a C class so before you can go to any of these privileged units. Really, like, you should be able to access some of that stuff from the get-go, some of those programs, because also these privileged units is where you get to learn your culture. Culture's not a privilege, culture's a right. So like those things are, I think, you know, and Isaiah can talk to this, but like, if you don't get your points up, you can't do the cultural stuff, yeah?
Yeah, if you, so in a normal day, if you don't get a certain amount of points in the morning, you're not gonna be able to do programs in the afternoon, you're not gonna be able to watch your TV, you won't be allowed to come out after dinner, you just
Talk to your family.
Yeah, you lose most of your privileges. But if you do make it, and you still gotta get off the first unit before you enter any programs at all. So that first unit, then backstage Pete, and then after you get off the introduction unit, it might take a while, but you start to see better programs, or your first programs and cultural programs as you start to go on. But it does take a while before they actually let you do that. So yeah.
Another question that's come through, Isaiah, Daniel and Lucas, is in your view, what is it that is the reason behind the young kids in Mt Druitt committing crimes? Is it boredom? Is it a lack of family support?
All of them, really.
It's all of the above. So these days I can speak because I literally know most of the kids around here. If I don't know them, they'll be a part of the same. If I don't know them, he'll know them. If you don't know them, one of our mates will know them. So we all pretty much know each other. And so there's just lack of things to do for young people out there.
Yeah, so it is practically boredom, and like
If there's boredom, there's
some people grow up in some bad homes and they just or they don't have food in their cupboards and that to help them, so they have to go and steal sometimes and they can't get work, or they're too young to work, so they try to steal to help their family out too what they can.
Yeah, so some young people take on serious responsibilities from a young age, which really shouldn't fall on some of their shoulders. Like Lucas said, it's a bit of boredom, bit of history of family growing up. It's just the way you brought up. Some people do it for fun. Like, honestly, I know a couple of people just love the adrenaline rush. They just love getting chased by police, only because the coppers. That's what I knew from a young age. Coppers would pull up and chase them, so they're going to continue on doing it. That's just the mindset. Most of the young people that you got today. It's driven into them since they're young. It's like, I don't even know.
And even like you got the youth workers around you that sometimes don't feel like they're there for you and the right reasons and stuff like that.
Yeah. And like, I suppose I'll just add, like, I feel that all that stuff is, like, to me, a lot of it goes back to the stripping of our culture and not being able to practice our culture. And when I say culture, that includes our family, that includes, you know, the connection to land, that includes all those different things that we're not able to practice because of systemic racism and just removal. You know, Isaiah, I don't know if he might have mentioned, but, you know, his dad was part of the stolen generation, and that's so many of the young fellas out here in Mt Druitt, that was their family members, you know. So it's constantly, it's that living up to, you know, are you man or mouse, you know?
That's pretty much
quite well done.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, are you gonna, like, there's that to the point there's that family thing, but that to me is intergenerational trauma, and it's very much like it's you against the system, and that's very much the mindset in Mt Druitt, where it's like, we'll stuff them all, but that's because no one's ever supported them. So the boredom thing too is just like, I can't tell you how many times, if you run a program that you can get these fellas involved or young people that the young people trust, you'll get like 50 kids at any of these things. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no shortage of young people that want to do things, you know. Look at these boys, like, as soon as there's a chance to help out, you know, look at them. They're straight here, and they're not doing it for themselves, they're doing it because of their kids and the next generation down. Like, that's the community of Mount Druitt. But it's also like, you also feel like you need to fight the cops because they are picking on your babies, or facts aren't going to give you you might be looking after your niece and nephew, but facts aren't going to pay you. Do you know what I mean? Like, you got to jump through all these hoops before you even get that payment. So it might be easier to, you know, do something where you earn money. So there's so many different systemic issues that feed into the overrepresentation. And we're just talking about the black fellas out here. Like, it's the whole of Mount Druitt. Like, the whole thing's not
All the different nationalities.
Yeah, all the different nationalities that deal with like similar issues out here, where it's just like you have a system that's just trying to control and not trying to support anyone. And I find, in my experience out here, that's what it is. Because once you give these fellas a little support, you know, Isaiah was emerging youth worker of the year last year, and he's presenting to this conference. But if I would have told the lads at Cobham this 5 years ago, they would have laughed at me. You know what I mean? Like, but like, he's proven them wrong. Everyone out here will prove them wrong, but they just need people to listen to them and give them a chance. You know?
Well, that's all for the questions. I just want to, on behalf of all of us that have had the privilege to watch your presentation and be part of it today, we sincerely thank you for coming forward, and we're very proud of the work that you're doing, especially in Mount Druitt. The comments that we're getting through the feed are just amazing. You really connected with the audience, so that's absolutely brilliant and really quite bold and brave. Thank you, Isaiah, Daniel and Lucas, so much, and we'll end the session there.
Thank you for this experience.